Hey everyone, it's Jessica from Stitchhouse. I'm trying something new. I hope you like these videos. I'm not sure where they're going yet, but the whole point is to have fun and talk to cool people, and that's what I plan on doing. So if you like this video or you find something really interesting in it that you think you could share with somebody else, I hope you do, and look forward to creating more things in the future. Thanks for watching. Okay, let's talk about something. Everybody came up to me at the Dallas Quilt Show and said, Heidi's lessons are invaluable.
Oh, that's
Those
sweet.
USB sticks.
Oh.
And I was really interested in hearing that because, we've just kind of started doing it for the past few months.
Mm-hmm.
And I get far less questions from people than I did before about long arm, tension, all that kind of stuff.
Well, honestly, that's the whole point of all of that education. So I can relate to you and your position because you're a shop owner. So every little minute throughout the day just is crucial because you have so many people you need to get to, and there's so much follow up that needs to happen that if
Yeah.
your quilters have a platform that they can go to where they can get those questions answered. The problem is that sometimes we try to give them the answer to the question, but then when they go home, it actually just leads them to more questions and not really finding the
Yeah.
answer. So having all of that information compiled, it's like 20 hours of video on there. And I move the camera around and you can really see up close inside the bobbin case and inside the hook assembly and get up close to how the machine is threaded and how you put the needle in, because it's the nitty gritty. And then they can rewind it, they can pause, they can print out the handouts too, because there's the handouts that go along with it. And so it's really like having me right there by their side. And that's the whole
Yep.
point, because as a shop owner, if you are paying somebody to come in and train your customers, you need to get your money's worth, honestly. So if you have quilters that are coming
I
back
definitely get my money's worth.
answering, they're continuing to ask questions, then it's like, we don't need her back because clearly she's not answering their questions and training them. I mean, that's the whole point of training and education. And it's just really important to me that the quilters are having a good time. And I love long arm quilting. It is a passion. I enjoy it so much. And I want to share that joy and that excitement with others, because if you can just get through the rigmarole of just all the little components that are involved in quilting, then you can just have fun with the creative process. So the fundamentals is really just the fundamentals, and that is the beginning. And I was able to launch recently at your shop the free motion and the feathers, and then there's tons more coming with rulers and pro stitcher and all kinds of things. So it's not fun to do the free motion or pro stitcher or any of that if you're just struggling with getting good stitches.
So, okay, I want to talk to you a little bit about who you are, Heidi, because I get to know who you are, but other people don't. And you really got to tell your story of how you got into this because it's so cool. And I think a lot of people, I think the story will resonate with them. So, can you like start from the beginning, start at Mervin's and
I
go from
will.
there?
And I had been thinking about this interview with you, and I thought, this really is the time that I do need to share a little more
Yep.
about my story, and kind of maybe express a little more as far as the details go, because there is a part that I do tend to kind of glaze over, and I'm a little nervous sharing this, I'll be honest.
I'll walk you through it.
But so I was married before I was married to John, and most people know that. And John and I have built a beautiful life with our beautiful daughters. But before that, I was married to somebody that wasn't supportive, and really was what I call a boat anchor without a boat. So just kind of just everything, just he was just constantly dragging me down. And It was
Yeah.
a very rough relationship. And when I got to the point in the relationship where had made the choice that I wanted to pursue long arm quilting, because you're right, I was working at Mervyn's, and before that I was working at Nordstrom, and I had a great retail career. I was making really good money. I was getting promoted and moving up and doing all of those checklist things that you're supposed to be doing in your late 20s and your early 30s, but still just feeling very unfulfilled. I mean, there was just this creative soul that was just yearning to get out. And so I bought a long arm machine, and I thought, well, with my retail experience, and I had studied fashion design in college, and I thought with that and my technical sewing skills, I thought, well, maybe at some point I can open a quilt shop. So I first started with buying a long arm in 2001, and I was getting really good. I had applied myself. I had, kind of made some mistakes, and I had some great, friends that were willing to sacrifice a few quilts. And your customers know that as the dirty dozen is what I call it. Once you've done 12 quilts on the long arm, at that point you pretty much have, kind of experienced a bunch of bumps in the road. But it got to the point where I was, able to make a shift. And it's a huge shift when you're trying to leave a well-paying job with benefits and paid vacation and 401k and all of that to go and be self-employed. So I have a younger sister that's a doctor, an older brother that's a doctor. I have a brother that's a civil engineer, and here I go and I say, well, I want to be a quilter. So it was like,
And you come from a family of medical background too, right?
exactly. And my dad's an architect and contractor. And so they're like, oh my God, she didn't finish college. She just kind of went and did all the fun classes. And then, it's like they kind of thought like, okay, great. She's got this great retail career and she's doing really well. And then I come and say, well, I want to be a quilter. So, because I am the middle child. So there is that. Anyways, but
Wait, can I back you up really quick?
yeah.
How did you decide you wanted to buy a long arm?
Well, I thought that would be a really good career to have as a mom, because I
Did you
also
know somebody else?
no, I walked into I was with a group of quilters, and we walked into a quilt shop, and for the first time I saw a long arm, I'm like, "Oh my God, look at that thing. That thing's cool." And people pay you to do that, and I wanted to climb up over the cabinets and like, "Let me drive. Let me drive." The lady's looking at me like I'm nuts, and I was a little nuts. And but I was like, well, and she had this paper pantograph that was laid out, and she was on the back side, because this is back in the olden days, when we follow that paper pattern. And we thought we were cool because we had a stitch regulator and all that. And I mean, that was like awesome back then. And so I was like, people pay you, and I'm like, I could do this. I could totally do this. So I saw a long arm at a quilt shop in action, and then from there I'm like, okay, I got to go home, got to buy me one of these things, because I thought, okay, I can.
You got it stuck in your head,
yes,
like you fixated on it.
Yeah, so I thought, well, and then also that would kind of be a great transition into owning a quilt shop. So anyways, the ex-husband was not on board with the career change, and we just had to part ways. He was not on board with a lot of things, but sometimes when you really feel passionate about something and you know that you have to move forward, and there were many other broken things in that relationship. And that was just the one thing that shined the light on how broken that relationship was there was just constant dragging and him pulling me away from my passion. And look where Mervyn's is today. I mean, hello. It's like, there's no 401k at Mervyn's. There's no paid vacation at Mervyn's anymore. So, you really didn't want me to give up that, that consistent paycheck. And I get it. It is scary. And to this day, you've got to kind of plan and budget and ride through, your good days, your slow days. I was there not that long ago, and you were closed for 2 days because of the ice storm, and so you have to just kind of flip and adapt. And so then so I talk about this window of time where I had 2 years and I was single, supporting myself on just my long arm quilting. And that window of time was really a process of growing in my long arm quilting, but it was a healing that I went through, and I healed myself through my quilting. And I had a lot of time alone to be with myself and to develop myself and to enjoy myself. And I just every day was comforted in knowing that I had made the right choice and I had made the right decision. And then when hard work meets opportunity, and the stars align, and John and I started dating and we got married. And it was funny, I just told him, okay, I'm getting older, I gotta get this show on the road, I need to have me some babies, and I'm a quilter, because he knew me from Mervin's. That's how, we had worked together for 7 years. And so when I went through my divorce, he was like, oh, you want to go on a date? And I was like, listen, buddy, I gotta tell you a thing or two. I don't know if you're really in for this. But, he was like, oh, okay, all right. And I was like, oh, no, this guy's telling me what I want to hear. But he's the real deal. We've been married now 15 years, and he's just supported me through everything. When I'm like, I want to buy a quilt shop. So I bought a quilt shop, because we moved from the LA area out to the Inland Empire, and because that's where his job took us out here. And he's like, okay, all right. And then I'm like, well, now, then 7 years after that, I'm like, okay, I want to sell my quilt shop and I want to open just a longarm center. And he's like, okay, all right. And then 6 years after that, COVID and all of that, I'm like, okay, I want to, close the longarm center and quilt from home and go out and travel teach. And he's like, okay, all right. So he's just really supportive, because he trusts the integrity that I have, and he trusts my abilities, and he trusts my passion, that I'm smart enough to know that I'm not going to be that boat anchor without a boat. And so knowing that I have his trust in a lot of things that I do, and because it's a lot of financial decisions that you have to make together. So that's some personal things that I haven't really shared so much, because I have talked about having the quilt shop and having the longarm center and all the things I learned in the process, like watching people quilt. And I'll use this example. I'll tell somebody, okay, this is what you're going to do. You're going to go over to your machine, and you're going to do this and do this, and then she will. Bye, Sabrina. My daughter's heading up for school, so bye, sweetie, bye. So I'll walk over there to the long arm machine, and it's like, okay, she is doing exactly what I told her to do, but that's not what I thought those words meant. And so I'm like, I better find new words for her. So the instant direct feedback that I have been able to see by explaining something and then watching them do, and then watching how that has been interpreted, that has been the key success in those fundamental tutorials, is because I already know that, okay, you might want to think that you're going to do it this way, but no, you're going to do it this way. So in the tutorials, not only are there examples of how you need to do it right, but it's also, okay, if you're wanting to interpret it this way or this way, it doesn't mean that. And then I explain why. So I have to give a lot of that credit to my experience of just being able to watch people quilt. And I will say that that's the biggest difference in my teaching style, is because there are really, really good quilters out there. I mean, quilters that are far better than I am. They just do immaculate work. But they haven't had that direct exposure to seeing immediate feedback as to when they explain something or they show something or they teach something, how is that being interpreted? And then I take it very seriously as to, okay, I want to make sure that my quilters are getting the results that they show up, that they're anticipating that they're going to get. So I want to meet them where they're at and help them grow. But I've been able to do that because of the, teaching every day in that Longarm Center, watching quilters quilt.
Heidi, when you got your long arm, how did you learn how to use it?
Well,
Because
oh
there
my
wasn't a you at
goodness.
the time, I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay. So Linda Taylor has this video that she had put out, and my long arm was in the garage because when the guy came to deliver it, he just opened the back end of his trailer and just wheeled it down the ramp and plugged it in and said, "Okay, here's the on button, here's the off button," and I'm just like, and he hands me the manual, says this will show you how to thread it, and I'm just like freaking out, and I'm like, did I just buy myself a $20,000 paperweight? Because it's like, oh no, but
Clothes hanger.
exactly, and I just said, okay, I'm going to just do something every day. So that was key. Is that, it's like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So I was working full time. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to make an appointment. I'm going to schedule in an appointment time of a half an hour every day. And sometimes it was just staring at the machine, kind of looking at it. Okay, I threaded it today. Okay, the next day I, would wind a bobbin. The next day I would just pin the backing to the top because the TV was in the house, but the long arm was in the garage. So I'd run in the house and play it, and then I would go back out to the garage, and I'm like, I don't know if that's really right. We didn't have cell phones where you just snap a picture, and then, or like YouTube where you just pull it up and you have it right there with your phone. So I got all my steps in going back and forth in and out of the house. But you just do what you have to do, and I was just really excited to get it up and running. And then one day I would just quilt one row, and then the next day I'd figure out, okay, I'm done quilting that row. Now I got to roll this quilt, and you have to figure out, okay, I've got to roll it far enough so I don't quilt on top of the row I just did, but I don't want to go too far because otherwise there's going to be a big gap in the quilt. So just a little bit at a time. And the thing is that I just had that grit to just get in there and do a little bit every day. And sometimes it can be a little discouraging because it's taking forever. But I knew that eventually, if you stick with it, you will get comfortable and it will get easier, and you can, and then it did. Okay, it didn't take me as long to load the quilt, didn't take me as long to advance it didn't take me as long to figure out what pattern I was going to do. After the dirty dozen, you're like, okay, I've got this. It doesn't take me all day just to pin the backing to the leader. So that's how I
So
learned.
so you've got your long arm, you're playing with it every day, you're still working full time at Mervyn's or
Mm-hmm.
Nordstrom
Yes, I was at
at the
Mervin's at
time.
that point. Mm-hmm.
When did you make the jump to quitting your full-time job to doing long arming full time?
It was a rough time that I hit. So I was literally like working myself to death. So because I was in the mode of trying to have to prove to my ex-husband that the business was there and that I could keep up with the business. Like, he put me in a position that made me feel like I had to make the same amount of money quilting that I was making working at Mervyn's before I could quit the Mervyn's job. So I literally worked myself to the point where I ended up in the hospital with pneumonia.
Wow.
And I was getting up early and quilting, going to work, and I lived about 20 minutes away from the store I was working at the time. So I would drive home, spend 20 minutes quilting, drive back to work, come home, and do some more
Quilt all
quilting
night.
after work. And then I was also changing my schedule. So as an assistant store manager, I was able to like kind of trade with people. And what I would do is if I had an early shift or an opening shift, I would actually trade for the closing shift. And my ex-husband would leave for work early and I would get up and I would quilt, 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 quilt. And then I would leave at like 2 o'clock and then go to work and then come home, at midnight and kind of do the same thing all over again, because I felt like I had to also do it in secret. And so when you're just working yourself 24 hours a day, I ended up in the hospital with pneumonia. And
Your
that
body
was,
finally told you no, stop.
it did. And that was the breaking point. That was definitely the breaking point. And it was just that point where I came home and I just said, it's one or the other. And that was the moment that I knew I had to leave. And I had people don't want to get involved in your marriage. They don't want to tell you what to do because they don't want to be responsible for giving you bad advice. And when
I know that.
yes, exactly. And you're like, hey, help a girl out here. Like when you see things are just not right, it's okay to say, are you okay? And maybe there is
Totally.
just a rough patch in a relationship that can be worked through, or maybe this is a relationship that can't be salvaged. And that woman needs to know that you're going to support her either way. And I had a shop owner who reached out to me and she said, you're coming to stay with me. You're bringing your long arm and you are coming to stay with me. And you're going to stay with me
Wow.
until you get divorced, until you get your own place, until you get a footing. And I that was such a pivotal moment for me in my life. So her name is Sherry Seidentop, and she's retired now from owning her quilt shop. She owned the Quilt Cupboard located here in Southern California. And I don't know that, I mean, who knows where I would be. You kind of just get along and you get along and you kind of trudge through and trudge through. But she gave me that lifeline. And
Wow.
that was such a pivotal moment at that time, because that I knew I had to leave, that it wasn't the quilting, it was the broken relationship that was destroying my life. And so I moved out, stayed with her for 6 to 8 weeks, and got my own apartment. And then when the divorce settled quickly, because magically, when you're married to somebody very controlling and possessive and you're no longer available, they just latch onto somebody else. So I got lucky. So
Funny how that happens.
glommed onto, yeah, isn't it? So it's glom onto to a new one right away. And then he got engaged right away, and I'm like, oh well, we're still legally married. So that was a really good negotiating power, because I'm like, oh, you want me to sign those divorce papers before your wedding? Well, let me see, I need this and I need a check for that, and guess what, you owe me for this. And you know what, boy, I had a nice big fat check right away. So I thought, okay, this is my window. I've got some money in savings, I've got a good customer base, I've got my own place, I have nobody to answer to. My parents didn't support us as kids financially. My dad has been a very big cheerleader for me. He's like, okay, I get it. He's an architect, general contractor, so he is self-employed. So he understands that entrepreneurial spirit, that you want to become your own thing in your own entity and explore. You have no boundaries when you're self-employed. You can keep it small, you can go big, whatever you desire. So he did
Yeah.
cheer me on, but that was the window. Not married, not answering to my parents. I don't have kids, and it's just me. I only have to answer to me. And I took that window, and so every day in and day out, I will talk about, okay, this is when I learned that really good habits in your quilting. So that's where I came up with some hard rules. I don't float my quilt tops. I don't rotate my quilt tops, and I don't use pre-wound bobbins. There are some things that just, I know that it was like my living lab, because when you can see how it directly impacts things, because you're not distracted with the outside world. You're not going to another job. You're not doing other activities. You're not doing other things. I was in that quilt room all day, every day to make a go of this and to be successful. So I found, oh my goodness, when I would try to take a shortcut or, something you'd pick up from somebody else, um, then, and there people will just kind of arbitrarily spout things off just to add something to the conversation, just so they can feel relevant and they can make themselves feel important. And you just, and I get that. Okay, fair enough. They might have heard something from somebody else and they're kind of passing it through. But the proof is in the pudding. I mean, I've quilted
Totally.
thousands and thousands of
You
quilts.
say that all the time too.
It's like, look, you are welcome to do what you want in the privacy of your own home, but when you float your quilt top and it ends up as a hot mess when you get down to that last row, don't call me and ask me how you fix it, because I'm going to tell
Same
you.
with like your thread suggestions, like the Isacord that we
Oh,
use now that has no
yes.
lint. People come
Isacord.
in. We used to sell all these types of threads, and I'm sure probably it'd maybe be better. We could make a few dollars if we sold some more types of thread, but my customers are happier
Right.
using your suggestion of thread, and that's all I care about.
And a happy customer is priceless. I mean, the
Yeah,
value that you put on a happy customer, there isn't a dollar value you can put on that. Because I also, when I had my little quilt shop and my long arm center, there was a long arm dealer right across the street from me. So what's gonna, and they're always, trying to undercut your prices, and they can get a better deal, and I'm like, that's great. But if you want to know how to operate your long arm, you're going to have to buy it from me. And you're going to get training, and you're going to get education, and you're going to get follow through. Well, the only way to really make a difference is to let your reputation speak for itself. So I had
totally.
to make sure that I did my follow up. My customers were happy. They were understanding their machines. And when they were talking to their friends that bought somewhere else or from somebody else, gosh, I don't have those problems. I don't know. I got really good training, and my customers don't have problems. And that's why I give everybody my cell phone number, my email address, because I do believe in the strategies and the fundamentals, so that if you are watching them and following them, that you won't have problems. And if you do, you can reach out, because then it's going to be just a quick refresher. Okay, did you double check this? Did you double check that? And then it's not going to be, I can't give you a 20-hour class to explain to you what you need to do, but I can point you back in the right direction and just help you double check things. And then it is a quick answer to a question that does come up, because you can't account for every individual variable that might happen, but with the fundamentals, it's going to clear through 99% of the issues that people have. And then I put my cell phone number on there for the last 1%, and I'm here to help walk you through that.
Can I tell you, since we talked about lifelines, can I tell you about the lifeline you threw me?
Okay. Sure.
So, a big part of Stitch House business has always been long arms. When we originally, or when I originally moved into that large space, I really wanted to add long arms. And, my big detractor really gravitated to those because who wouldn't like a long arm, right? They're fun to play with. And we built that business for a long time, or at Stitch House with the long arms. And then when suddenly I didn't have somebody there teaching anymore, I feel like my customers felt like I kind of abandoned them a little bit. And I didn't. I was just really trying to figure out that next step. And I wanted to make sure whoever I brought in for them was going to be there for them.
Right.
And you had met me prior to all that. And
Mm-hmm.
we didn't connect at first, right? Because, I had all that stuff going on.
Right.
And when you finally came to my business in May, I think it was probably like the roughest month of my life.
Yes.
I had
That
just been
was,
going through all that stuff.
yeah. I mean, we
My
all
boyfriend broke up
do.
with me.
Yeah, we all do hit that rock bottom. That, like I said, that pivotal point where It's like, okay, this is when things do get better.
And you came in, and the reason that I'm so happy to have you there is because I know that when you're helping somebody and working with a customer, that you put your everything into it. And you're not there making it the Heidi show. I do call you Longarm Barbie, but but I think you should go with that name. You should trademark it. Um, but but you're there to help people genuinely, and not just make it all about you. You actually care about people learning how to use their machines. You empower people, like with your story, to help people feel motivated and confident to be able to start their own business, or if it's just a hobby, you make people feel like they can actually do it,
It is.
and
It's
it's
fun.
not just about you.
No, it's about the quilter, and
Yeah,
if it's funny because I will get it. It is a little selfish because there is this, this yearning to be accepted by people and to be valued by people, and of course for people to see you as somebody, I want to be respected in my industry. And
totally.
that doesn't happen with what I call a splash and dash. Oh, look at this and look at this. And you can, there are educators out there that are knowledgeable and they know some bits and pieces, but I don't do the bits and pieces. I don't do the dog and
No.
pony show. I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear and what is going to make you successful when you're home alone and it's you and your long arm. How are you going to get it from turned on to stitching to troubleshooting that tension to being creative and applying the creative process? And when you only plug in little bits, it leaves a very incomplete story and then leaves you more frustrated. So
Yep.
I tell my students right from the get-go, I'm going to tell you things you don't want to hear, but I'm going to tell you how to make it successful. And when you say, oh, the machine should be able to do that, or why doesn't it do this, or why doesn't it do that, I mean, I want it to make dinner and make me a cup of coffee, but the reality is it's not going to do that. So but it will do a beautiful job of quilting, and I just feel that I'm the one that translates between the quilter and the machine. And we have in the
Totally.
industry, you have the manufacturers and the engineers, and we need them. And yes, okay, I kind of crack a lot of jokes about them, and it's because they have a component missing, is that they don't use the equipment that they design and that they build. But we need the engineers so that we can have these fabulous machines, and we need the software designers and the coders. We need all of that. And then you have the dealers like you, and you're providing a space for people to come and try the product and buy the product, and you're providing classes. But I bridge that gap between all of that, between, because I use the machine, I'm a certified tech, I've been a long arm dealer, so I was, first a long arm quilter. So I've been in each of those positions. No, I don't actually design and build the machines, but being a certified tech, I fully understand how that machine operates. I've been inside
Yep.
more of them than I really want to be inside of.
You've set them up. You've
Set
fixed
them
them.
up.
You still fix people's machines.
I do. I go and fix them when they, I'll do regular services to anybody that bought their machine from me. And then, if oopsies happen, because I feel that, again, I still have a reputation to maintain. So I
Totally.
don't want to leave people high and dry. I plan to be in this industry a long time. I tell John, he's like, oh, he's planning for his retirement. It's still about 10 years away, but I keep asking him, what are you going to do? Because I'm not going to entertain you. I've got quilting to do, and as long as you can prop me up at my long arm machine, I'm going to be quilting because I love it. I enjoy it. And I can get the button pushed on this one, turn around and get the other one going. And so, I'm in it for the long haul. So it's making sure that I continue to do the follow-up, and so it's very self-satisfying when somebody is so happy with the training and the education that I have freed them from kind of maybe their own mental boundaries or their insecurities or their roadblocks. When you free somebody, it's just like, oh, it is self-serving, even though it is about making them successful, because I get to ride right along with that, with their success. So when, I've won awards for my quilting, but when a student wins an award, you're just like, oh, that is heartwarming. That is very self-satisfying. And then when they text you, I just got a text message from a customer who lived in Southern California, and she moved back east, and she's sending me pictures of a quilt, and she says, I channeled my inner Heidi. And so she's like, I hear you in my I hear your voice in my head. And I mean, her quilt's beautiful, and it's amazing to see. So it is self-gratifying to see that. So I don't want to say that, no, it's not all about me, because there is, yeah. I mean, I'm gonna say I do enjoy that for sure. It's good to see, and but I'm definitely one of those that hasn't gone on to really advance myself as far as like a YouTube channel. I think I have like 5 subscribers, although and I think it's
Maybe
like
we'll get you more from
my
this.
mom
I'll
and
link
my
it to you.
dad, and I know John, and so I've got really like 2 people that
And then you've got 2 girls, so you got to get them.
yeah, exactly. So, and I've been trying to do more social media and more Instagram and some stuff on YouTube, but I this last couple of years I have been busy filming the tutorials, and quite honestly, my philosophy is my content has value. And yeah, I could
Totally.
put all this information out there on YouTube, but the reality is I already know how to quilt. And I'm not looking to become a YouTube star. I'm not looking to become, that, self-glorified person. I really want to help people. So if they want it, I do need to do a little bit more of the social media, because that's just the world that we live in. But I'm spending my time making quality content, and it's
And
available
you
for
are.
anybody that really wants it. And it's, I mean, it's at a fabulous price. I mean, when we sell them, a collection of 12 classes, I mean, that would
It's
cost
way
them
underpriced.
thousands of dollars to come to 12 different classes. But it's a great value. It works for the consumer. They can watch it as many times as they want. And so I'm excited to be able to be in a position where now I'm continuing to do more and more of that. So I'm not well known, kind of out there. I mean, people do know me, but but go to my YouTube channel, Heidi Stagno. I'm supposed to give myself a
We're going to
plug,
do that
right?
at the end. We're going to do that
Oh,
at
at
the
the
end.
end. Okay, at
Okay,
the end. That's how this
Heidi,
is done.
2 last questions. My first one is, who is long arm quilting for? Because the number one thing that I hear from people when I'm trying to put them in your open house and these free events that we have where people can come and pick your brain basically about long arming and what it's all about. Who's it for?
Anybody that has a creative soul. I mean, anybody that's looking for something fun to do, and they feel that, they're being stifled by maybe some other type of art form, or they just haven't found a good fit for them. And long arm quilting encompasses a lot of things. You can do the hand guided quilting, which I love to do, but there's also so much available on the digital platform. So if you're a creative person, digitally with, graphic arts, designing and things like that, there is so much available between Pro Stitcher and Pro Stitcher Designer. You don't even have to be able to drive the handlebars. If you can click a mouse,
Right?
you can create amazing designs, just with the software that's available. And it's for anybody. I remember I had a customer walk into the Longarm Center, and she's just like, "What's this?" And I'm like, "Well, we quilt quilts." And she's like, "Oh, well, that's cool." And she came back a week later, and she says, Okay, I want to do this. I'm like, all right. And I said, well, do you have a quilt? No, I don't have a quilt. She'd never made a quilt. And I said, don't worry. I said, we'll get you we had a little bin of charity quilts. And I said, come to the class, because I had a rental program. So quilters could come and rent the machines. And so she was renting the machine, and she didn't have any quilts to quilt. She was just asking people, hey, do you want your quilt quilted? I want to go and quilt on that long arm over there. So she had, and I'm like, we've got charity quilts, we've got quilts of valor you can quilt, and she was thrilled, and now she does piecing so that she can, quilt her own quilt tops. Yeah, she got something to quilt. But she just, and that's Deb Lovell, and she's an amazing quilter and does amazing work. And she started off with just the edge to edge designs, and now she's, she got herself into the rulers and the custom quilting. So it's really for anybody that's just decided that, they want to try something new and find a hobby, or if you can't stand your dead end job, or it's just as
I thought you were going to say your dead weight husband.
Okay, yeah, one of those too.
That too. Okay. Last thing is, before we plug all your social channels.
Okay, that's right.
What is your number one takeaway for someone that maybe wants to use a long arm or their quilting or creativity to start a business?
So, well, you have to buy a long arm. I mean, and
Step
that
one.
was not a planned question. I will say that. That was not a planned. So, but quite honestly, I had renters that they would come in and rent the machine, and they'd kind of get some practice in, and they're like, well, how do I know when I'm going to be ready to start a business? I said, well, first of all, you're not going to be ready until you own your own machine, because you need to be able to access it at your convenience, on your time frame, on your schedule, and you need to build your skills in your comfort zone. And you're going to step into it. I mean, when I started long arm quilting, I was only doing edge to edge. I'm like, this is it. This is where I'm going to start. There's a customer base for that. You can start there. And then as you get comfortable, you're going to layer in another skill set. And then, so I call that, you're going to do edge to edge in the middle, and then you're going to do a custom border. Then you're going to layer in, okay, now I can do block and a sashing and a block and a sashing. So you're starting to venture into a mid-level custom quilting. So it's about just taking one step at a time. You don't have to win the marathon to start making money. You just need to put your tennis shoes on and start running and start generating that income. And it's like a hairstylist. How does a hairstylist build her clientele? Or anybody else in, oh, Doug, hey, Doug.
Keep going, keep going. He's just barking his head off.
Oh, okay. I couldn't hear him. But so you just one skill set at a time, but there is a customer for every skill set that you're going to have. And then I'm here as a mentor, because as you progress your skills, you're going to need to adjust your pricing. As you adjust your skills, you're going to need to adjust your turnaround time. As your skills advance, that might be the time where you now need 2 machines. I mean, I have 2 long arms, and it's very productive use of my time, so that when I am home and I'm not travel teaching, I can do twice as many quilts. And I had thought about at one point, well, I should sell one, and my husband's like, no, because then when you are home.
We love John.
I know. I think he was afraid that I was going to be like, oh, I just sold that one, now I need a new one. And he's like, no, it's like... He was kind of, maybe afraid of what was going to happen there. But, that, so it's you're going to bite it off one thing at a time. Maybe you just get into a little bit smaller machine to get started with the computer, and then you grow into a piece of larger equipment. So you have to take the first step. And I will tell you this. The first steps are the scariest steps. That first step of buying the machine, I get you, I understand, it's gonna show up, you're gonna panic, and you're going to have this moment that we all have. Did I just buy a $20,000 paperweight? No, you didn't, because you're going to come, you're going to get the mentoring, you're going to get the training, you're going to get the education, and you've got somebody cheering you on. I mean, there's hordes and hordes of quilts, and I can't quilt them all, that's for sure. So we need, the industry is growing. There's a demand for long arm quilters. There's people that just don't want to do that themselves. So the first step is the scariest. Every step after that gets a little bit easier and a little bit easier and a little bit easier. So you might think now, what's she talking about? I'm going to have to buy a second machine. I don't even know if I can make money doing this. And I'll tell you this, and I do share this little nugget of information in my Quilting as a Business class. I actually make more per hour when I'm quilting, when I'm running 2 long arms, than my sister who's a pharmacist. So she went to how many years of medical school? She has, student loans up the yin yang. And I always, I kind of like to rub that in, that I tell her, oh yes, I was, making, X amount of dollars per hour. And she's like, oh, she doesn't make that, much money per hour. And I said, oh yeah, and by the way, I don't have all those student loans either that I have to pay off. So you just do it little by little, and it's a fabulous career. I never have to say, oh, let me go ask my boss if I can have that time off. You are fabulous. I'm like, okay, Jessica, this is when I can come. I've got this week available, or this week available, and this week available, and we try to hit something every single month. So we are consistent with that training. But it's so great to be able to have that flexibility. You can't get that anywhere else. And so just taking that first step, you got to buy your long arm. And then that's
anything in life though, right, Heidi? You got to take that first step. And a lot of people are really scared to do that. They think about it for a long time, but they never make it out of that contemplation mode, right?
Right.
And then they get stuck.
I remember there was a customer I had, and her name is Loretta, and she had been coming into the Longarm Center for several years, and she wanted to buy a long arm, and she had done some of my classes, and then she'd kind of hem and haw and kind of pull back, and then she'd come in and she was all enthused, and she had some personal things that were going on that she was just stuck in. She said, well, when I clear through this, or when this happens, or when I get over this hump. And so one day we were standing outside of my shop, and I just spoke very frank to her, and I said, you know what, Loretta, you're never going to be happy. You are day in and day out, you're miserable. You are so consumed with this thing that you have going on that if you at least had your long arm, you could escape, and you could be going to a place of enjoyment. You could go in your room, you could do your quilting, you could do something that you enjoy. Who knows how long this thing is going to last? And then she kind of walked away with this very stone look on her face, and I thought, oh my God, I probably just offended this woman.
Burst her bubble.
Oh my, I'm thinking I really was not very nice to her. And I thought, but she came back the very next day, big old wad of cash in her hand. I'm buying my long arm. And I was like, well, that wasn't really what, so I wasn't trying to threaten you into buying your long arm. But she said, I went home and I realized you were right. And she is still, years later, this personal issue, it's still tied up. And she says, if I don't know where I'd be without my long arm quilting. So she doesn't do it for a business. It's a personal escape for her, for some of the challenge that she just has in her life. And the situation is nothing to do with her, but it's just something in her life that she just can't exit from at this particular point. So long arm quilting can be great.
So she
therapy.
escapes.
So she escapes, and she's so glad that she did. And I thought, okay, all right, I guess that was the right speech for the right person at the right time. So I
totally.
do, yes. So
okay, Heidi. Well, you're going to be here very soon. At Stitchhouse, and I'm going to put all that information in the email when I release this video. So will you tell everybody how to find you, like on social media or your YouTube channel, so we can get some followers?
Okay, all right. So I can get more than 5 followers, right?
Yes.
So,
let's get Heidi some YouTube followers.
My YouTube channel is Quilting with Heidi, but people have told me that when they go to search that, it doesn't come up. But if you search
Okay.
Heidi Stagno, you can find me there. And there's some things that I've posted a few little things recent, and then there's some things that I did years ago with a Handy Quilter at when I filmed some things for Handy Quilter. Excuse me. And then my Instagram is H Stagno. And my Facebook page, I just have decided to keep it simple and consolidate everything down to Heidi Miller Stagno. So that's my Facebook.
Perfect.
It's my personal Facebook. So if you friend request me, I will be your friend. I like friends. I will like lots of friends.
You
So,
love friends.
but I will tell you, you're going to see all this. You'll see all the stuff that I post about the kids with their gymnastics. But I've just found it's just easier for me just to do it all in one thing because there's so many people that
Yeah.
do know me personally and professionally, so they like to see both what I'm doing with the quilting and what I've got going on with the kids and where we're going, and you can kind of see where I'm at and what I'm doing when I'm not quilting and chasing kids around
Which is a lot.
is a lot, but it's great. It's a busy window of life, and I'm enjoying every minute of it because it'll be a short window here, and they'll kind of be not
Yep.
needing me as much. So,
You're so
but
close to that too. I
yes.
know.
So Heidi Miller Stagno on Facebook, H Stagno Stagno on Instagram, Quilting with Heidi on YouTube, but search Heidi Stagno on YouTube. So you can find me, and maybe I'll get more than 5 followers on YouTube. So
You can also find Heidi at Stitchhouse once a month.
that's right.
So
That's right. In
come
person,
sign
you'll
up
get
for some of her classes.
the live version, and I have great
You get the
jokes.
Longarm Barbie version.
Yes, yes, I have great
I call
jokes.
Heidi that because she wears dresses and heels all day long.
I do, and I love it because, and I did put clothes on today. I put a sweater on, and I do have pants on too. I don't know if you can see. So
Oh my gosh, I don't. I have sweatpants.
but normally when I'm home and I'm quilting, it's pajama Barbie quilter. So
Yeah.
at least I know that when I go out in public, I have clothes on. So my wardrobe consists of fancy dresses with cute heels and cute
Yep.
outfits or pajamas. So there's kind of
That's
like not a lot of in between there. Yeah. So
yeah.
yeah, but I'm gonna be
Oh,
there. I'm flying in April 3rd, Monday, and then I'll
yep.
be there the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. We have the open house on the 7th. Come and just come and say hi. And
Ah,
hey, if you're somebody out there going through a rough relationship, I'm just come in. I'll give you a hug and cheer you on. And it's also about women supporting women, and we're here for each other, and
yep.
just we can do that through quilting and just being available. And it's fabulous that you have a space where people can come together in person, and now I love these interviews that you're doing, and
Thank you.
people get to know these fabulous individuals that you're interviewing at a more in-depth you can meet their personalities and see who they are.
Totally. And you're very interesting. And everybody I've been interviewing has an interesting story and has great takeaways and tidbits. So even if you're not a long arm quilter, maybe you got something from this, is what my hope was. And I knew you would maybe personally share a little bit about what you had going on when you got into long arming, and I was hoping you would. So thank
Yeah,
you for that.
I did. I was thinking about it, and I thought, this is the time to really kind of share a little bit more about, because I will say I've had those 2 years single supporting myself. I kind of throw that in there, but there's more to it than just that I was long arm quilting. I was building myself back together at the same time of building my professional business, and it was a
Yeah.
great time. But now I am just reaping the benefits of all of that growth and all of that repair and restoration I've done to myself, and just really enjoying. I love coming to Stitchhouse. Love being able to that. The quilters are amazing. They are so fun. They laugh at all my dumb jokes, and it's fun. I love it. And I come home and I tell her, we gotta move to Texas. He's like, do they have mountains? And I'm like, no. And he's like, do they have beaches? I'm like, not in Dallas.
No.
And so So I'm trying. I'm trying to convince him, but
I
yeah.
know.
Yeah. In the meantime, I'm just gonna
All
have to
right.
come visit.
Well, thanks for doing this with me, Heidi. I look forward to seeing you soon, and tell John and the girls I say hi.
I will. Thanks. I'll see you next
Okay.
week. Take
Bye,
care.
Heidi.
Bye.